They called us savages, monsters, space orcs with blunt hands and blunt minds, too primitive to grasp the elegance of the galactic order. Funny thing is, we didn't care. When the war came, humans didn't fight clean. We fought to win. No energy shields, no bioengineered warriors. Just grit, gunpowder, and stubbornness that scared the stars themselves. That's probably why I was the only human standing in a field hospital on Velthor 6, hands soaked in alien blood, trying to save the life of the king's traitorous daughter. Princess Zyra had been the spearhead of a rebellion that killed thousands of our soldiers. To most, she was the enemy incarnate. To me, she was a patient. You don't even know how her anatomy works. My CO barked. Then I'll learn, I said. They thought I was mad. Maybe I was. But I've always believed the difference between a monster and a man is whether he stops trying. I didn't stop. That decision changed the galaxy. It also got me married to an alien princess. The stench of burning ozone and scorched flesh clung to the wind like a curse. Velthor 6 wasn't supposed to be a battlefield. Once, its rolling plains were home to herds of sky whales and crystalline flowers that hummed in the night. Now it was rubble and ash, littered with the broken shells of alien mechs and the twisted remains of human dropships. I was ankle-deep in mud and blood when they brought her in. "Medic, we got a live one, barely," Corporal Reyes shouted over the howling storm. Two soldiers dragged a limp figure between them, tall, willowy, skin the color of amethyst lit from within. Her armor was shredded, and her breathing came in sharp, wet gasps. I froze, even half-conscious, even drenched in gore. There was no mistaking who she was. "Are you insane?" I hissed. "That's Princess Zyra." The corporal spat. "She's the reason half our squad's dead. Orders say leave her." But his eyes flicked to the wreckage around us. Felt wrong. She groaned weakly, eyelids fluttering. "You brought me a political powder keg with a pulse." I exhaled, forcing my hands to steady. "Fine. Put her on the table." The other medics wouldn't touch her. Too risky. Too alien. Her blood sizzled against the instruments, and her organs pulsed in patterns no human anatomy book could explain. But I didn't hesitate. "This isn't about sides anymore," I muttered, working to keep her airway open. "This is about one life." Hours passed in a blur of torn flesh, improvised tools, and whispered curses. My commanding officer stormed in twice to order me off the case. I ignored him. "You're going to get court-martialed for this, Vera," he warned. "Not if she dies first." I shot back. When her chest finally rose in a steady rhythm, I slumped against the wall, drenched in sweat and alien ichor. She was alive. Against all odds, she was alive. And that's when her eyes snapped open, slitted pupils like a predator, and she hissed her first words at me in perfect galactic common. "Why, save me." They told us the Velthori were untouchable, elegant, ancient, and impossibly advanced, an empire that stretched across 8 sectors, ruling with bioengineered armies and psychic warlords. Humanity? We were the upstart apes, newcomers to the stars. We weren't supposed to last a single cycle against them. And yet here I was, just another mud-caked human medic in a field hospital, hands shaking from exhaustion and too much caffeine, standing over the broken body of Princess Zyra. Her skin shimmered like fractured glass under the harsh lights. Her silver-white hair was matted with her own blood, thicker, darker than ours, and faintly luminous. Her chest rose and fell in stuttering jerks. Every breath, a losing battle. "She's dying," said Corporal Reyes. "Orders were to leave her." "But—" "Yeah," I muttered. "But you didn't." His jaw tightened. "Didn't feel right. Leaving someone to bleed out. Even her." I didn't answer. My eyes scanned her wounds. Deep plasma burns, shredded muscle, a cracked carapace over what I assumed were vital organs. I didn't recognize half of what I was seeing. The other medics backed away. I couldn't blame them. Treating her wasn't just dangerous, it was political suicide. "This is insane," hissed Lieutenant Heiress. "You're not authorized. She's the enemy." "She's a patient," I shot back. "She's a Velthary Royal," Heiress snapped. "A traitor to her own kind, maybe, but still. If you fail, we get blamed. If you succeed, we still get blamed." I ignored him and reached for my scalpel. The first incision was chaos. Her skin resisted the blade like living armor, forcing me to heat the edge until it glowed. Her blood hissed against the metal, releasing acrid vapors that burned my throat. I switched to gloves and rebreathers, barking for assistance who never came. So I worked alone. Hours passed in a blur of alien anatomy, makeshift tools, and whispered curses. I had to learn her biology on the fly, mapping unknown organs, improvising grafts, and praying every step wasn't a fatal mistake. She flatlined twice. Both times, I brought her back. By the time the operation was over, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely suture the last incision. I didn't stop. Couldn't. When her chest finally rose in a steady rhythm, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "Stable," I whispered. "She's stable." That's when her eyes snapped open, even half-conscious, even weak and feverish. They burned like molten gold. Slitted pupils, sharp and predatory, locked onto mine with terrifying focus. "Why? Save me." Her voice was raw, but the words, perfect galactic common, were clear enough. For a moment, I couldn't answer. "Because you were dying," I said finally. Her lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. "Humans don't do mercy." "You're right," I said. "This isn't mercy. It's medicine." She blinked slowly. "Madman," she whispered, before her eyelids fluttered shut again. When I emerged from the tent hours later, Heiress was waiting for me. "You just signed your death warrant," he said flatly. "If the brass doesn't court-martial you, the Velthary will." "Maybe," I said, "but she's alive. That's what matters." He shook his head. "You're out of your damn mind, Vera. Out of your mind." Maybe I was, but as I stared at the rising sun, dim and red over Velthar, Ixa's scarred horizon, I felt something strange. A quiet certainty that this wasn't the end. Saving her wasn't just an act of stubborn compassion. It was the start of something bigger. Princess Zyra hated me, even half paralyzed and wrapped in crude bandages. Her golden eyes followed my every movement like a hawk tracking prey. If she'd been stronger, I'm certain she would have clawed my throat out with those obsidian nails. I couldn't blame her. To her, I was a savage ape in filthy fatigues, fumbling with her delicate, impossible physiology. She was Velthary royalty, raised in ivory towers among psionic healers and singing crystal wards. Now she was trapped in a human field hospital, her life depending on the steady hands of a space orc. Every day was a battle. The first week was the worst. She refused food, refused to speak, refused to let me near her unless sedated. I had to get creative, pureeing nutrient paste into a solution compatible with her alien digestion, rigging IVs from salvaged medkits. When I cleaned her burns, she hissed and spat venom in her native tongue. My translator caught only fragments. "Beast primitive, unworthy." Yeah, I muttered, dabbing salve onto cracked, luminous skin. "Keep sweet-talking me. It helps me focus." "Why? Keep me alive," she rasped one night, voice hoarse from fever. "Because that's my job," I said without looking up. "Even if you hate my guts." Her laugh was a low, bitter thing. No human does anything without gain. I paused. "You're right. I want something." Her eyes narrowed. "What?" "Your life. I want you to keep it. Seems like a fair trade for all this work." For a heartbeat, her expression softened. Then the steel returned. She turned her face away. Days bled into nights. I barely slept, barely ate. The other medics avoided our tent like it was cursed. Some were afraid of her, others of what I was becoming, too close to the enemy. They weren't wrong. There was something in Zyra's defiance I couldn't ignore, even bedridden. She radiated a fierce dignity. When her fever broke and her strength began returning, she started asking questions. "Do all humans act like you?" "Like what?" I asked, checking her vitals. "Stupid, reckless, loyal to no benefit." "Pretty much," I said with a shrug. "It's how we survived our homeworld. You think Velthar 6 is harsh? Try growing up on Earth. Oceans that want to drown you. Skies that throw lightning at your face. Animals that don't stop hunting until you're dead." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Savages." "Damn right," I said proudly. By the second week, she could sit up without assistance. The burns on her chest had knitted into faint silver scars, a Velthari trait I found oddly beautiful. But her recovery brought a new challenge: alien loyalists. One night, our camp alarms blared. A squad of Velthari commandos slipped past human defenses, intent on reclaiming their princess. Zyra, still too weak to walk unaided, stared at me as blaster fire echoed outside. "They'll kill you," she said flatly. "You're nothing to them. A disposable savage." "Maybe," I said, slinging my rifle over one shoulder. "But I'm not about to hand you over to people who left you for dead." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because you're my patient," I said. "And because I'm too damn stubborn to let anyone undo my work." When the dust settled, 3 Velthari commandos lay unconscious outside our tent. I stood bleeding from a shallow graze across my ribs, heart pounding like a drum. Zyra stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You fought them for me." "Of course," I said, wincing as I sank onto the cot. "Didn't spend 2 weeks keeping you alive just to watch them cart you off." "You're insane," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, "but I get results." For the first time, she laughed, soft, musical, and tinged with disbelief. Her walls began to crack after that. She started eating without prompting, started speaking more, asking questions about Earth, about humanity. I told her about our home. Blue oceans, green forests, skies filled with angry storms and stubborn stars. She listened in silence, golden eyes thoughtful. "You're kind, you survive everything," she murmured. "Damn right," I said. "It's what we do." I thought the first attack was bad. It was nothing compared to the second. This time, they came in force. A whole squadron of Velthari shock troops, sleek in obsidian armor that shimmered like liquid night, dropped out of the sky under cover of an electromagnetic storm. Our perimeter alarms never had a chance. By the time I heard the first screams, the camp was already burning. "Elias!" Zyra's voice snapped me out of my daze. She was standing barely, clutching the edge of the cot for balance. "They've come for me." "No shit," I muttered, yanking my medkit onto my back and checking the charge on my rifle. "Can you run?" "I can try." "Good enough." We burst out of the tent as plasma fire lit up the night. Human soldiers were fighting valiantly, but against Velthari commandos, they were outmatched. I spotted a gap in the attackers' formation, narrow, but big enough for 2 desperate fools to slip through. "Stay close," I barked, grabbing her hand. Her skin was warm and faintly glowing, alien and yet comforting. We ran. A shriek tore through the air as a Velthari warrior landed in front of us, blade flashing. I shoved Zyra behind me and raised my rifle. "Move aside, human!" The warrior growled in perfect common. "She is royal blood. She does not belong with your kind. I didn't flinch. She belongs wherever the hell she wants to be. Primitive ape, you would stand against the Empire for her. I tightened my grip on the rifle. I already did. The warrior lunged. I fired. It wasn't clean, but it was enough. Their armor sparked and cracked as they staggered back. I tackled them off their feet and drove the butt of my rifle into their helmet until it shattered. When I stood again, Zyra was staring at me, eyes wide, lips parted. You killed a Velthari commando. Yeah, I panted. And if his buddies want to argue about it, they're welcome to try. We kept moving, ducking through debris and shattered drop pods. I led her toward a half-buried escape shuttle at the edge of camp, an old human craft barely held together by rust and luck. Won't fly, she said. Watch me. Inside, I slammed the hatch shut and started the ignition sequence. The console flickered, sputtered, then roared to life. Zyra collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, clutching her side. You're insane. Been told that a lot lately, I said. Hold on. The shuttle groaned as we lifted off, dodging streaks of plasma fire. A lucky shot grazed the hull, setting off alarms, but we cleared the atmosphere by a miracle, or sheer human stubbornness. As the stars stretched into hyperspace, silence fell. Zyra was staring at me again, but the hatred in her eyes was gone. You could have handed me over, she said softly. You should have. Not my style, I said, working to steady my breathing. Why? She pressed. Why risk everything for me? A traitor, an enemy. Because you're not just an enemy anymore, I said. You're my patient, and maybe my friend. Her golden eyes softened. Friend. She said the word like it was foreign on her tongue. When we finally docked at a neutral station weeks later, a delegation of Velthari awaited us. Royal guards, healers, and the king himself, a towering figure wreathed in psionic energy. You saved my daughter, he said, voice like rolling thunder. For that, you may name your reward. I shook my head. I don't want anything. Then take this and leave. He gestured, but Zyra raised a hand to stop him. No, her voice was steady, commanding. I choose him. Gasps echoed through the chamber. I will not return as a pawn, father, she said. This human, this healer, risked all to save me. He treated me with more honor than any Velthari ever has. I choose him as my mate. The Velthari throne room was nothing like I imagined. It wasn't carved from marble or gold. It was alive. Giant crystalline structures pulsed with faint bioluminescence, their soft glow reflecting off the polished black floor. Alien glyphs crawled across the walls like living vines. And at the center, on a raised dais, sat King Thaler, the most powerful being in 8 star systems. He regarded me with eyes that burned like twin suns. You are the human healer, he said, his deep voice resonating in my bones. The ape who saved my daughter when her own kind abandoned her. I'm Elias Vera, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Medic, 3rd Earth Battalion. You may call yourself what you wish, the king rumbled. But you are more than a mere medic now. You have my gratitude, and my daughter's attachment. My eyes flicked to Zyra. She stood at my side, tall and regal, despite the faint scars still marking her luminous skin. Her hand brushed mine deliberately, defiantly, in full view of her father's court. I choose him, she said again, her voice sharp as a blade. Not as a reward, not as a prize, as my equal. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Advisors whispered in hushed tones. A few nobles even recoiled in disgust. A human, one spat. A savage? You would dilute the royal bloodline with this creature. Watch your tongue, Zyra snapped. This creature risked his life when our own warriors did not. He is braver and kinder than any of you. King Thaler's gaze never wavered from me. Do you understand what she asks, human? To stand at her side is to stand against 1,000 years of Velthari tradition. You will be scorned, hunted, perhaps even killed. I didn't save her to marry her, I said quietly. I didn't save her for any reward at all. But I glanced at Zyra. I'd be lying if I said I don't care about her now. Her golden eyes softened, and for a moment, she looked almost vulnerable. You have no idea what you're stepping into, Thaler warned. Neither did we when we first reached the stars, I replied. Didn't stop us then either. The king sat back, fingers steepled. Very well. If this is truly your wish, daughter, then I will not deny you. But the union must be formalized before the council. There will be resistance. Let them resist, Zyra said coldly. I've resisted them all my life. That night, in the quiet of her chambers, I paced the floor. You sure about this? I asked. Your people, your father, they're not just going to accept me. Zyra approached, her silver hair catching the soft light. I am Velthari royalty, she said. I have never been free to choose anything. Not my battles, not my allies, not even my own healers. Her hand found mine. But you, stubborn, reckless human, you gave me my life back without asking for anything in return. So yes, Elias Vera, for the first time, I am sure. I swallowed hard. You deserve someone better than me. She tilted her head, amused. Better? Tell me, what alien species has endured hostile worlds, fought impossible wars, and still found time to heal their enemies? You humans, you are dangerous precisely because you believe nothing is impossible. Then she leaned in, her forehead touching mine. Elias, you're not a reward. You're my choice. The next morning, the council convened. Velthari nobles hissed and muttered as I walked at Zyra's side, but she held her head high, fingers laced tightly with mine. When the king declared his blessing of our union, half the chamber erupted in outrage. The other half watched in stunned silence. I didn't care, because for the first time since I set foot on Velthar Prime, I wasn't just a medic. I wasn't just a soldier. I was hers. Peace didn't come with fanfare. It came in pieces, broken conversations, uneasy truces, signed documents still stained with suspicion. But it came. When the Velthari king allowed his daughter to wed a human, me, it shattered centuries of belief. What was once unthinkable had now become precedent. And with it, everything began to change. At first, both sides resisted. Velthari purists called Zyra a traitor. Some even tried to assassinate her during the engagement rites. But she was ready. We both were. The assassin didn't get past the palace gardens. Earth's high command didn't trust her either. They saw her as a spy wrapped in a pretty face and royal blood. But then Zyra started speaking to their leaders, not with threats, but with precision. She explained Velthari psychology, strategy, and history with brutal honesty. She became the bridge between our species. And somehow, through it all, we built something real. I was no longer just a medic. Velthari physicians came to me curious. I taught them about human trauma response, about grit, about how sometimes healing doesn't come from tech, but from stubbornness and dirt-covered hands refusing to give up. And I learned from them too. They taught me about psionic medicine, about healing through resonance and mind mirroring. Zyra's people didn't just treat the body, they mended the spirit. In time, we opened the first joint hospital on Velthar Prime. The Healers Accord, staffed by humans and Velthari alike, it became a symbol of what could be done, not with weapons, but with trust. Zyra and I weren't just political symbols anymore. We were partners in every sense. At night, when the council chambers fell silent and the endless stars hung over the balcony of our skyborn quarters, we just exist together. No throne, no court, no war, She'd rest her head against my chest and whisper in her native tongue, words I still barely understood, but knew were meant only for me. And I'd tell her about Earth, about rainstorms and campfires and wild dogs, about forests that smelled like life and death in the same breath. She loved those stories. "You humans," she'd murmur, "you fall in love with chaos." "You Velthari," I'd reply, "you make chaos worth surviving." The war ended not with a victor, but with a vow. A treaty, co-written by me and Zyra, was signed beneath the twin moons of Velthar 6. It was long, clumsy, and politically messy, but it worked. Both sides agreed to shared territories, joint research outposts, and cultural exchanges. No one cheered, no one celebrated, but no one fired another shot either. That was enough. Years passed. The galaxy changed. The title they gave me was absurd. Consort of the Starblood line. I hated it. Zyra just laughed. "You married a queen, Elias. Deal with it." But behind closed doors, we were still the same. Just a human medic and a wounded princess who refused to die. One night, while walking through the garden we'd grown from earth soil and Velthari crystal root, Zyra took my hand. "I used to dream of escaping the crown," she said, "running to the outer rim, disappearing. And now," I asked, "now I dream of building something that lasts." She turned to me, eyes soft. "With you." And we did. We raised healers, not warriors. Scientists, not conquerors. Some were human, some were Velthari, some were both. And when they asked where it all began, where peace was born, I'd tell them the truth. It wasn't born in a treaty or a council. It began in a torn-up field tent, where a stubborn human refused to let a dying enemy princess slip away. Where two broken people chose to save each other. And love, real love, grew in the ashes of war.